Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex topics and really get to the surprising details underneath.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're tackling something that feels a bit puzzling. Malaria and dengue. Both spread by mosquitoes, right? But the ways we fight them are incredibly different.
That's right. It seems like, you just have one big mosquito control plan.
Exactly. But it doesn't work like that. We're going to explore why, looking specifically at how things play out in Malaysia.
It really gets down to the nitty-gritty of the insects and the diseases themselves. It's fascinating stuff.
So let's dive in. The core issue. Why aren't control programs easily transferable between these two? It starts with mosquitoes, doesn't it? Not all bites are the same.
Precisely. You've got different vectors carrying different pathogens. For malaria, the main culprit is the female Anopheles mosquito.
Okay.
And for dengue, it's the female Aedes mosquito, mostly Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. Different species altogether.
And what about their behavior? How they live day to day?
Huge differences. Take biting time. Anopheles, the malaria ones, they're mostly active at night. Nocturnal feeders.
Okay, night biters.
But Aedes, for dengue, they bite during the daytime, often peaking, around dawn and dusk.
Wow. Okay, that alone changes everything for protection strategies. What about where they lay eggs? Breeding habits.
Another key difference, Anopheles tend to prefer natural water sources.
Mm-hmm.
Think ponds, marshes, rice paddies, usually more rural.
Got it.
Aedes mosquitoes are much more urban adapted. They love artificial containers, flower pot saucers, discarded tires, clogged gutters, even tiny bottle caps with a bit of water right around where people live.
So Anopheles are out in the country streams. Aedes are literally in your backyard trash can.
Pretty much, yeah. That adaptability makes Aedes a real challenge in cities.
And after they bite, where do they hang out? Do they rest differently?
They do. Anopheles might rest indoors or outdoors, sometimes on walls inside houses. Aedes, though, they mostly rest indoors, often in dark, undisturbed places like under furniture or in closets.
Hidden away. Okay. And travel. Do they roam far?
Big difference here, too. Anopheles can fly quite a distance, maybe up to 2 kilometers from their breeding site.
2 kilometers.
Yeah. But Aedes, they tend to stick close to home, usually within, say, 200 meters, much smaller range.
A homebody versus a long-distance traveler. That must massively impact how an outbreak spreads.
Oh, absolutely. Aedes outbreaks can be hyper-localized, maybe just a few streets. Anopheles can spread malaria over a wider area because they travel further.
Okay, so the mosquitoes are totally different characters. What about the diseases themselves? Malaria versus dengue?
Fundamentally different things biologically.
Mm.
Malaria is caused by a parasite, Plasmodium. It's a single-celled organism.
A parasite.
Dengue is caused by a virus, the dengue virus, DENV. That difference is crucial.
Virus versus parasite. Got it.
And reservoirs matter too. For malaria, humans are the main reservoir, but some types, like the zoonotic ones we'll discuss, also exist in animals, like monkeys.
Right. Animals complicate things.
They really do. For dengue, though, humans are the only significant reservoir. It cycles from mosquito to human, back to mosquito.
Okay, human only for dengue. And how quickly do you get sick?
Big difference again. Malaria has a relatively long incubation period. It could be, 30 days, even up to 90 days between the bite and feeling sick.
Wow, that's a long delay.
Yeah. Dengue is much faster. Symptoms usually show up within 4 to 10 days after the bite. Much quicker onset.
So that affects how outbreaks look, I guess. Slow burn versus fast fire.
Exactly. Malaria often presents as endemic, sort of always there at a low level, especially in rural areas. Dengue tends to cause sharp, explosive epidemics, often hitting open areas hard and fast.
So the big takeaway here is it's not just about mosquitoes. It's about which mosquito, what it carries, and how both the insect and the pathogen behave.
That's the core of it. You have to know your enemy intimately, their habits, their biology, the disease's pattern. You can't use a night-focused strategy for a daytime biter. It just won't work.
Right. Which leads us perfectly into control strategies, because if they're so different, the way you fight them has to be tailored. One size fits all is definitely out.
Completely out. Think about indoor residual spraying, IRS, or insecticide-treated bed nets, ITNs.
Yeah, classic malaria tool.
Exactly. They work brilliantly for malaria because Anopheles bite at night when people are under nets, and they often rest on indoor walls after biting where they hit the spray.
Makes perfect sense. But for dengue?
Much less effective. Adaides bite during the day, so nets are irrelevant for most people. And while they rest indoors, spraying walls might miss them if they're hiding under the bed or in a closet. It's not where they reliably hang out post-meal, like Anopheles sometimes do.
So spraying and nets are kind of a non-starter for dengue prevention, mostly.
Largely, yes. For dengue, the big focus has to be source reduction.
Getting rid of those breeding sites, the water in the pots and tires.
Precisely. It's very community-level, household-level work. Finding and eliminating anywhere AIDS can lay eggs. For malaria, source reduction is different. It might involve managing larger water bodies like swamps or irrigation ditches, a different scale.
And how you track the diseases, the surveillance, that differs too.
Yeah. Dengue often relies more on passive surveillance. People feel sick, they go to a clinic, it gets reported. Those systems are getting better at active detection.
Okay.
Malaria surveillance, especially as you aim for elimination, has to be much more active. Finding cases, often through screening, testing people even if they don't feel very sick, and then meticulously following up to ensure treatment and prevent spread. It's a real hunt.
So proactive versus reactive in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Especially in those final elimination phases for malaria.
Now, Malaysia uses this framework called Integrated Vector Management, IVM, for both diseases. It sounds like a common approach, but how does it actually look different on the ground for malaria versus dengue?
IVM is the strategic umbrella, the philosophy. But the tools deployed under that umbrella are specific. Take source reduction, like we mentioned. For malaria, it could be clearing vegetation around streams, managing water levels. For dengue, in Malaysia, they use the PTP approach.
PTP, what's that stand for?
Preserve, trap, prevent. Preserve means managing water storage containers properly. Trap involves using OV traps or sticky traps to monitor and catch mosquitoes. And prevent is the active searching and destroying of breeding sites. Very hands-on community stuff.
Okay. And chemical controls. Fogging comes to mind for dengue.
Right. Fogging, larviciding in containers, sometimes ULV spraying that's ultra-low volume, often used during dengue outbreaks to quickly kill adult Aedes. For malaria, the chemical focus is more on that indoor residual spraying, IRS, and sometimes outdoor residual spraying, ORS, targeting the Anopheles resting habits.
Different chemicals, different targets. What about biological control? Anything cool there?
Yeah. For malaria, sometimes they use larvivorous fish that eat mosquito larvae, like local species called ikan-gapi or puyu. Put them in ponds or ditches.
Fish. Okay.
For dengue, a really exciting development is using Wolbachia bacteria. They release mosquitoes infected with Wolbachia. When these mate with wild mosquitoes, it reduces the ability of the offspring and the mosquitoes themselves to transmit the dengue virus. It's quite innovative.
That is cool. And physical controls. Nets for malaria. What's the equivalent for dengue?
It's more about personal protection during the day. Promoting long sleeves, using insect repellents, having screens on windows and doors, things you do while you're awake and active.
Right, individual actions. Community involvement is key for both, you said, but how does that differ?
The focus shifts. For malaria, especially in elimination phases, it might involve targeting specific high-risk groups, maybe migrant workers or forest communities, using local champions like the Due to Malaria or malaria ambassadors.
Okay, targeted outreach.
For dengue, because it's often urban and widespread breeding sites are everywhere, you need broad community participation. Everyone needs to be checking their own homes and yards. Programs like Combi focus on mobilizing entire neighborhoods. Communication for behavioral impact. It's a strategy to encourage sustained community action, like cleaning up breeding sites regularly.
And even policy involves different players.
Yes. Malaria control might need closer work with, say, forestry departments or border control because of the rural nature and risk of imported cases. Dengue control relies heavily on local government authorities, the PBTs in Malaysia for urban planning, waste management, enforcing cleanliness bylaws. Very different collaborations.
It really drives home that this isn't just kill mosquitoes. It's deep ecological understanding applied with real precision.
Exactly. It's tailoring the weapon to the specific enemy based on its known weaknesses and habits.
Okay, let's make this real. Let's talk about Malaysia's actual experience. What are the big trends for these diseases there?
Well, Malaysia deals with a few mosquito-borne diseases, but dengue is absolutely the dominant one. It's endemic, always there, but has these big outbreaks maybe every 5 years or so. It hits urban areas hardest, fueled by all those AIDS breeding opportunities.
What keeps dengue so persistent?
A combination of things. Rapid urbanization creates more habitats. Climate change likely plays a role. Sometimes community efforts in source reduction aren't consistent enough. And shifts in the dominant dengue virus serotypes, there are 4. DN1 to DEN4 mean immunity in the population changes, allowing new outbreaks.
A constant challenge. What's the story with malaria? You mentioned elimination efforts.
Yeah, that's actually a major success story. In part, thanks to the National Malaria Elimination Program, Malaysia has reported 0 indigenous human malaria cases since 2018, which is incredible.
Wow. 0 human cases originating there.
Right, the UT. There's a growing challenge with zoonotic malaria. This is Plasmodium knowlesi, a monkey malaria parasite that can infect humans. It's transmitted mainly by a forest-dwelling Anopheles mosquito, Anopheles balabacensis, especially in Sabah and Sarawak on Borneo.
So they beat human malaria, but now monkey malaria is stepping up. Nature finds a way, huh?
It seems so. It's a completely different challenge involving forest ecology and animal reservoirs. And briefly, they also see chikungunya, sometimes alongside dengue, and Japanese encephalitis in rural farming areas.
Okay, so let's dig into Malaysia's specific plans. How well has the dengue strategic plan, TERRAS, actually worked?
TERRAS has 3 main parts, or TERRAS. TERRAS 1 is surveillance. It's been pretty good at getting real-time data for quick responses using systems like eDengue. But challenges remain. Not all clinics report fully or quickly, data quality can vary, and IT infrastructure in remote areas is, well, lacking.
Right, the digital divide. What about TERRAS 2, early detection and treatment?
This has helped lower the death rate from severe dengue, definitely. Hospitals are better prepared. But problems include people delaying seeking help, hospitals getting swamped during big outbreaks, and maybe inconsistent levels of expertise among doctors dealing with dengue.
And TERRAS 3, prevention and control. This is the Wolbachia and community stuff.
Yes. There have been successes, like reducing AIDS numbers with Wolbachia releases in some areas, and the Kumbaya programs have had impact. But the big struggles are getting sustained community participation. People get tired of checking for water constantly.
Yeah, behavior change fatigue.
Exactly. And there can be resistance to new things like Wolbachia, plus sometimes an over-reliance on just fogging, which looks dramatic but doesn't solve the root problem of breeding sites.
What about the support structures, research, funding?
Crucial, but often stretched thin. Budgets can be limited, getting research into actual practice takes time, and like we said, the dengue vaccine isn't widely available through public health yet.
Okay, shifting to the malaria elimination plan. Given the 0 indigenous cases, Pillar 1 access to diagnosis and treatment must have worked well.
Incredibly well for human malaria, yes. Reaching that 0 target proves it. The challenges now are maintaining access in very remote spots, especially for zoonotic malaria diagnosis, and, ironically, keeping up vigilance when the disease seems gone. Complacency is a risk.
Makes sense. And Pillar 2, surveillance, keeping an eye out.
It's still vital, especially for monitoring those zoonotic malaria hotspots and any potential important cases. But it faces issues like incomplete reporting from private doctors and maybe surveillance fatigue in areas that haven't seen malaria in years.
And Pillar 3, preventing reestablishment, keeping borders tight.
Supports the whole effort, but it's tough. People move across borders, and you can't hermetically seal a country. It relies on good collaboration and rapid response if a case does slip through. And again, funding and coordination for supporting elements can be limiting factors.
Looking across both plans, what are the big overarching hurdles for integrated vector management in Malaysia, the shared headaches?
Well, first, just the sheer complexity. IVM requires so many different agencies, health, environment, local councils, sometimes agriculture or forestry, to work together smoothly. That's always a massive coordination challenge.
Bureaucracy and logistics. Got it.
Then community buy-in. We keep coming back to it because it's fundamental. Getting people to consistently do their part, whether it's emptying containers or using nets, is really hard to sustain long-term. People have other priorities.
Absolutely. What else?
Insecticide resistance is a big one. Both AIDS and Anopheles are developing resistance to the chemicals we rely on. That makes control much harder and more expensive. It forces constant searching for new tools or strategies.
The mosquitoes are evolving against us.
In a way, yes. And environmental challenges, relentless urbanization, creating AIDS habitats, the complexity of forest ecosystems for zoonotic malaria vectors, these are huge factors.
And I imagine climate change throws a wrench in the works, too.
Definitely. Changes in rainfall, temperature patterns, they affect mosquito breeding, survival, where they live. It makes planning much harder because the baseline is constantly shifting. Strategies need to be flexible and adaptive.
So bringing this all together for our listeners, what's the crucial point to understand?
I think it's that controlling these diseases is incredibly complex and requires a really deep understanding of the specific mosquito, the specific disease, and the local environment. There's no magic bullet.
Right. It's dynamic. It needs constant work, constant adaptation.
And it's not just science. It's about community action, political will, sustained funding, cross-sector collaboration. It's a whole-of-society effort, really.
So the key takeaways. Mosquitoes aren't monolithic. Anopheles and Aedes are worlds apart, carrying different diseases that need fundamentally different battle plans.
Exactly. And even with smart strategies like IVM, success isn't guaranteed. You're constantly fighting challenges like community fatigue, insecticide resistance, and massive environmental changes.
It's a continuous adaptive fight. Which leaves us with a thought, perhaps. As our world keeps changing with urbanization and climate shifts, how critical will our ability to innovate and adapt not just scientifically, but as communities and societies be in this ongoing struggle against these tiny but incredibly potent disease carriers?
That's the question, isn't it? Our adaptability might be the ultimate deciding factor.